Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Jake, the Muslim Metaphysician. Today we got something special for you guys. As you can see, the stream is called Apostate Prophet Tapped Out. Now, this is going to be something interesting for you guys. I'm sure you guys know I'm part of a YouTube channel called Thought Adventure Podcast. Short for that is TAP, T-A-P. So do check it out if you haven't already. If you haven't already, then I don't know what you guys are doing here, honestly. But anyway, so Apostate Prophet, who all of you guys know, he needs no introduction, actually came on our channel, TAP, to have a discussion. And the discussion was supposed to be on, is the belief in one God justified? Now, sneak preview. Mr. Ridvan actually admitted that belief in God is justified, but there's been so much other drama and things going on with this character. So we're going to look at some of these things because he's been very active on his YouTube channel lately with a bunch of different posts and things, whether it be on Twitter or YouTube or whatever. And so we're going to look at some of these things, right? So I have a few objectives within this stream. First, I want to look at some of the things that he's saying recently with respect, especially to the TAP conversation. So we're going to take a look at that. Then we're going to go into, I'm also going to show a message that since he's sharing private emails, I could do the same. I'm going to show a message that he sent me to demonstrate that this guy, I mean, he's a joke, honestly, just complete joke. And so that's the thing. And then what else we're going to go through here? We're going to go through some posts, one that he made about Ali Dawa and a recent video that he put up. And then I'm also going to address a video that he made a couple weeks back. I don't know exactly when it was. I think maybe almost a month ago now, which was him deconstructing my conversion story. And we're going to take a look at that and see whether or not it was actually a deconstruction worth watching. I'll let you guys be the judge of that. But first thing is, I'd like to say salam to everybody in the chat. So thanks for watching. Do give this a thumbs up so you can get this out there and share it on your social media. That is much appreciated. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to first take a look at Mr. Apostate Prophet's recent YouTube post, because you know he made a very interesting post in lieu sort of post a discussion, right? So we're going to take a look at what he actually said, and it was honestly, if you saw the discussion and you're looking for a good laugh, you're in the right place, guys. This is going to be a funny stream where we kick back, and the joke's not going to be on me, the joke's going to be on Mr. Apostate Prophet. So let's take a look at this here. 1 second. So got my screen shared. You guys are with me, right? So look at the highlighted section. And there's going to be I don't know how long the stream's going to be. Depends how long I just babble on for. But I'm going to go through a bunch of these things to demonstrate a few things. You know, the guy's not interested in honest conversation. He's totally inept and not equipped for these conversations, and he's dishonest. I'm going to go through all these points to show this. So we just had a super chat saying Jake is one of the Ummah's funniest da'is, but that's irrelevant. Well, appreciate it. I like that you guys like my humor. I've got a bit of sort of dry humor, so some people don't get it, but I appreciate that. I will try to address the super chats, guys. So I appreciate you sending those and becoming members and all that stuff. But I do have a lot to get to, so I'm going to do it periodically as I'm breaking things down, if that's okay. So here's the post here, and he made this 8 hours ago. I'm going to read it out to you guys. It's the highlighted section. So it says, I have easily won every discussion I have had with Muslims so far. No idea why they are still trying. I mean, honestly. Okay, and then he lists off some of these. Some of these he had, and some of these he didn't even have a conversation with these people. But Daniel Hakikachu first, he says he proved, these are the things that he did, proved that Islamic laws are outdated and unjustifiable. Let's think about that for this first one. Now, Daniel had a conversation with Mr. Apostate Prophet. It was a long discussion. And you can say what you want. You could disagree with Daniel. I don't care. Say whatever you want. But if you come away watching that discussion and think that Apostate Prophet actually proved that Islamic laws are outdated and unjustifiable, then I have no idea what you were watching. The guy was totally out of his depth. He thought that this was in his wheelhouse, and he just got completely embarrassed. It was a joke. I'm sorry to tell you, Apostate, but your analysis of that discussion with Daniel was just ridiculous, right? Also, given the fact that that discussion actually caused you to have anxiety attacks live on your YouTube show. And yet you think that you proved those things? Well, here's the other thing, my friend. If you thought you demonstrated that so clearly, why did you never actually post that video publicly on your YouTube channel? As far as I'm able to tell, you posted the video and it's unlisted. That means only people with the YouTube link can actually get it. So you weren't confident enough and man enough. If you so handled brother Daniel, so smoothly, you would have posted the video and said, oh, look, to all my followers, watch how I destroyed this Islamic apologist. But you didn't do that. So what's the reason, my friend? What's the reason why you didn't post it? So if you're so confident, make the video public. Don't be a little baby. Post a video. Now, second point is Muhammad Hijab. He says that he proved that Islam is ignorant of science and human nature. Oh, my God. Honestly, I don't know if this guy actually believes some of the things that come out of his mouth and that he types on his computer or phone, whatever he's doing. I don't know. He may actually believe it, and he's so delusional. I really don't know. But again, I don't have the links to all these things. But for people who have seen it, even a lot of non-Muslims, like especially with the Daniel situation, I saw so many comments from even atheists and some of his followers that were like, Apostate Prophet got destroyed by Daniel. Like, this guy was just totally out of his depth. The whole conversation was over his head. And most of the time, in pretty much all of these cases, the conversation is way over his head. And it's so over his head, he doesn't even realize it. Or sometimes he does, but then he's dishonest about it. I don't know. It's this kind of weird relationship that Apostate has with himself, Mr. Ridvan. So, yeah, the second point, go watch the hijab video and discussion. I mean, did he prove that? No, of course not. And people know me. People who know me know that I try to be as objective as possible. I'm not one of these Muslims, and I'm not saying that I'm not calling out anybody in particular, but I'm not like, oh, because that guy's wearing the same jersey as me, that every time, without even watching it or watching, I'm going to say, oh, yeah, he destroyed that guy. Because people know I did a debate review between a Christian and Muslim, and I said, stop whining, guys, the Muslim lost. And I caught some flack for it. Some people didn't like it, but it is what it is. This is not like a prophetic debate. We're just some regular guys on YouTube for the most part, right? And some people less qualified than others, let's just be honest, especially this Apostate Prophet guy. So my point is, I try to be as objective as possible. Now, the third one is the one that I'm most interested. Why? Because I was involved in it. So I have, first-person perspective on it. Now, he says the four Muslims couldn't debate Islam. Couldn't see the clear contradiction in a law deciding who believes and who disbelieves, but also punishing the disbelievers. So the first point, we couldn't debate Islam. First of all, we invited you, which you agreed to come on, to discuss whether or not the belief in one God is justified. You agreed to that. And what we did is for the first hour, and because the discussion was about a little bit over 2 hours, for the first little hour plus, we discussed mainly proof for God and that kind of stuff. And then, which we didn't have to do, we said, you know what, we've been kind of knocking this guy around for the first hour. Let's allow him to try to present an argument that he has. We said, what, he's our guest. Let's allow him to do that. So we entertained him for about 50 minutes on one of the arguments and things that he wanted to try to prove. And we demonstrated that, first of all, he couldn't show that the propositions that he were claiming internal to Islam or in our belief set was actually a contradiction of A and not A. And when we pointed that out in the debate, he said, oh, you're being too rigorous. You're being too specific. No, that's how these discussions work. I'm sorry, because you weren't ready for it, which you actually admitted in your own video on your channel. Post the discussion, you said, well, I could have done these things better. I wasn't ready. I thought that the conversation was going to go like this, but it didn't actually happen the way I wanted. So it didn't happen the way you wanted, and now you think you won. Even though in the first hour, you didn't even know what was going on. You didn't know your head from your foot. I mean, so it's just ridiculous. Now, so we couldn't debate Islam. We could debate Islam, but you're not equipped for it. And you're also definitely not equipped to talk about God's existence. I mean, so honestly, dude, you got to start reading some basic texts before you even step in the arena. You need to take some time off of YouTube, study some things in depth, be charitable, try to be objective, instead of just coming out with this nonsense that you're coming with. So another example of complete delusion. Nadir Ahmed, I'm not even going to comment on that one because I don't even think I've really, it's not clear in my mind. I might have seen it. I don't know. Sheikh Uthman, he told you to come to the park. You didn't come. So how did you win? How did you win a discussion with him when you didn't even have one? Brother Fareed, you didn't win a discussion with him because you didn't have the discussion with him. Sajid, I don't think you had a discussion with him either, as far as I know. So the 5, 6, and 7, how could you win when you didn't even talk to them? And the first 3, you just got completely embarrassed. The 4th, I don't know. I would have to take a look at that again. But honestly, I don't really care, to be quite frank with you. But the point is that he made this comment that he thinks he won all of these discussions. Now, I'm going to play a clip from the video, Before I do that, let me just stop sharing my screen real quick, and I'll just take a look at the chat to see if there's anything I missed before I move on to the next video, which is going to be on this point, him claiming and talking about winning and losing. And we're going to see that the guy doesn't have any consistent methodology. I don't know if he's just so out there he doesn't even realize and keep track of the things he says. I don't know. Or he does know and he's so dishonest. Maybe a combination of both. Who knows? A bunch of people sent super chats. Really appreciate those super chats from you guys. May Allah reward you. So let me go and share my screen here and take a look at what he says in the very beginning of his discussion with us on tap. So let's take a look at that. 1 second here. All right. So I'm making some general comments in the beginning, and then listen to what Apostate Prophet has to say here. The live chat if he wants to. But so my first question, and this is how I see things as foundational, it's sort of a fundamental question. I'm wondering from you if you think that a necessary being is possible.
Okay. I want to address this quickly. I just want to say those few words, if that is okay with you. I want to say I am very thankful, very grateful that you guys invited me here. It was actually a big surprise to me. I appreciate it very much. Happy to join. I'm happy to have a peaceful, respectful conversation. I want to say quickly, I don't care at all about power struggles, exerting my power over you or you over me, humiliating you, you humiliating me, and all that. And I know that there are lots of people in the live chat on your side or on my side who expect that I will humiliate you or you will humiliate me and all that. I really don't care about any of that stuff. Name calling and all that, it doesn't contribute in any way at all. I'm sick of the hate. I've come today here to really have a reasonable exchange, to listen to you guys. I would like you to listen to me.
If you notice, it seems like he doesn't care. It's not about embarrassing each other. He's here for an honest conversation, an honest exchange. He really is happy to be there. He wants to have a peaceful, respectful conversation. This is what he claims he wants. And then we're going to show that he doesn't actually believe that. You'll see. So let's continue listening to this little intro he's got here.
Honestly, I've mentioned it before we went live. I have actually went through I've gone through 2 streams on this channel. I've watched them through just to get an idea of who you guys are, what you're doing, and all that. So I am here for a good purpose. So I would also invite everyone to just be completely open-minded and calm and respectful. I definitely will do that from my side. If I come to your question, Jake, thank you. Do I believe that a necessary being is possible?
Okay, so before we get to the intellectual part of it, whether or not, or lack thereof, I'm sorry to say, because he never answered the question. But before we get to that, let's talk about what he just said in the beginning. He wanted this to be an honest conversation. You know, he was happy to be here. He doesn't care about embarrassing each other. But then he makes this post where he's declaring victory on anybody he's either talked to or never even talked to. He's declaring victory over them. It's just absolutely absurd, you know, and he claims that he's here for an honest conversation, right? But let's take a look at some other evidence that we can look at to see whether or not he really is here for an honest conversation. I'll show you guys another post that he made on his community page, and I'll let you guys be the judge of it. But for me, it's quite clear that he's not here. Look, compare what he said, that, you know, he's done with all the hate and the nonsense. He's really just here for an honest conversation. That's what he really wants. Let's take a look at this for a second here. Let me share my screen. 1 second, because I got to share a different tab now. Going back to his YouTube channel. Okay, so you guys can see the screen, right? So listen to what his opening statement was for his discussion with us. Now compare this with a couple days after the discussion, when we didn't even have a problem with him. There was no really comments or beef or anything. Look, a couple days after that, this is what he posts. My ultimate mission is to take over the Kaaba, to purify it from Islamic elements, and to rightfully turn it into a temple where everyone is welcome as it should be. I think everyone will be okay with that. Can't wait. Now, honestly, if you are a person who wants to have honest, respectful conversations with Muslims, and a couple days after you have, which I think even you would have to admit would be your most respectful conversation you've had with Muslims, you go and you make this post comparing your thesis statement of how you opened up the conversation. Oh, you just really want an honest conversation. And then you say your ultimate mission is to take over the Kaaba. Are you kidding me? Now, people may think this is silly, but because he doesn't see any value in Masjid Haram, right? Obviously, Muslims do. But the fact of the matter is, if you are thinking from a pragmatic perspective of wanting to have good, honest conversations with Muslims, you should never post and claim that your ultimate mission of everything is to take over the Kaaba. And obviously, I know he's kidding, okay? He's making a joke. He's making a mockery, because he clearly says, I think everyone will be okay with that. Can't wait. Even though he obviously knows that Muslims wouldn't be okay with that. So he's taking a dig. He's mocking. He's playing around. He's joking. He's making fun of people. And if you think that is actually going to be conducive to honest conversations with Muslims, then you are delusional. But I don't think that you're that dumb. I think you're that dishonest that you really don't want to have honest conversations with Muslims. And posts like this demonstrate that time and time again. And I can go through post after post after post. Now, this is equivalent to me of saying, well, you know what? I come on my YouTube channel. Well, guys, I have to tell you something. I really want to have great conversations with Roman Catholics. I really, we disagree, but I really want to have great conversations with Roman Catholics. And then a couple days later, I make a YouTube video or I make a post, and I say that my ultimate mission is to take over the Vatican and the seat of the Pope. Okay, so my ultimate mission is to take over the Vatican and the seat of the Pope. Now, can a rational person put those two statements together and take them seriously and say that they're not contradictory? Obviously not. This is ridiculous. And nobody's buying into it, dude. You're a fraud. You're a joke. No, everybody knows you don't want a real conversation. It's a complete joke. Okay? Now, me, because I'm not a Roman Catholic, I don't have the same admiration that a Catholic does for it in the same way that I have for Masjid Haram, but I understand what their position is, and I understand that if I said that, that would be highly offensive and would not be pragmatic to having a good conversation with these people. So you don't have to say, oh, well, Muslims are emotional because I say this and they don't like it. No, the point is, from a psychological and pragmatic perspective, if you really want to have good conversations with them, then you wouldn't do that. That would be like me saying, well, as I just gave with the Vatican, and I could say the same thing like in ancient Israel to a Jewish person. Well, my ultimate mission is to completely take over, the temple in Jerusalem. That's my ultimate mission. I just want to take over the whole temple. But you know what, guys? I really want to have great conversations with Jewish people. Are you kidding? Nobody's taking you seriously, bro. We're pulling the mask off of you. You're a fraud. You're a phony. Nobody believes you now. Okay? So there's so much more many more things that I can post, show you guys to demonstrate the lack of sincerity with this individual. He's not sincere. He's not. And people are saying, well, maybe he's that stupid. No, I cannot. Listen, if I could call him that dumb, right, I would find an excuse for that. I legitimately cannot find a rational excuse to say, wow, maybe this guy is just that stupid. No, I can't. I sincerely cannot find it. He's just completely dishonest. He does not really want a serious conversation. So, there's a couple more things here that I need to address. I see the chat is live, so appreciate that, guys. So there's a couple other things here. I'm going to show another point of dishonesty. Another point of dishonesty on his community post. And you'll see, the guy makes a lot of ridiculous videos, but check out his community posts sometimes on YouTube. You'll be surprised, man. It's pretty bad with the dishonesty. So I'm going to demonstrate another example of dishonesty. Guess what? From today, 5 hours ago. The guy just provides us so much easy content to refute him and to show that he's not genuine. He is not a genuine person at all. Let's take a look at this community post right here. What does this say? Ali Dawa, who you guys know, he's the guy in the photo here. He's, I don't need to explain. You guys know who he is. So Ali Dawa, he says, just published a video titled, Hatun's attacker wasn't Muslim. Breaking news. Now, for those who don't know, Hatun Tash, or whatever her name is, she some woman, she's claims to be a Christian apologist. She goes to Speaker's Corner and mainly is like attacking Islam and, you know, doing her whatever little apologetic work. She, unfortunately, very unfortunately, like, you could dislike the person, say whatever you want, but of course, what happened to her was just totally unacceptable and reprehensible. Whoever did it should be taken down and seriously punished for it. So those are my thoughts on it. Very clear. We don't really need to even say that much other than that. Now, Ali Dawah did make this video, but we're going to compare it with what Apostate Prophet claims he actually says. So he says in the video, he says that it is just a prank. Now, we are going to evaluate that statement, my friend, because the video from Ali Dawah, we're going to watch the whole thing. It's only like 8 minutes or something like that. Yeah, so anyway, I forgot to say, I think, that she was attacked. I think she was stabbed, which was just totally disgraceful, whoever did this. So I hope they catch the person who did it and take him down. Should really be punished for it, seriously. But here, he's claiming that, so Ali Dawah did make this video, but he's claiming that in this video, which I'm going to play for you guys, that Ali Dawah says it was all just a prank, like it's just made up. That the identity and religion of the attacker is unknown, but that he just wanted to publish this video to shock us and to make a point. Now, thousands of Muslims who have a notorious habit of not reading / listen past the title link think that the attacker has been confirmed a Christian or non-Muslim. Can you believe this? This is how low they go. So we're going to evaluate. We're going to watch Ali Dawah's video. Now, remember, I want you to pay close attention to this first part. He says that he claims that Ali Dawah says that it was all just a prank. Now, let's evaluate this. Let's take a look at this. I'm going to play the video for you guys. And you guys let me know what you think. Let me know if you think that Ali Dawah actually said that. Okay? Let's be objective here. Because if he did, right, then we can call him out on it because that's not appropriate, even though he's my Muslim brother. But we're going to see. We're going to see quite clearly what's happening. So here it goes.
How embarrassing. How humiliating. How humiliating it's going to be.
Brothers and sisters, do you guys want to make money the halal way? No, this is not a scam. It's actually buying and selling products. Brand new sealed phones. You can get that. Or go to his Instagram page.
How embarrassing. Two brothers and sisters and their friends. How embarrassing. How embarrassing. How humiliating. How humiliating it's going to be. All the Islamophobes, be it from A Puss, the little weasel who gets embarrassed like his happy days, yeah, to Rotten Wood, to DCCI, to these guys, Tommy Robinson, who just lost a lawsuit and has lost about 600 grand. You know, sadly, he had to probably sell his house and a few properties that he earned through this money, organizing a march. How embarrassing is it now? Isn't it embarrassing that you jump to speculations without knowing, and you jump to assumptions? And I've been watching this. Hey, Puss, yeah, you. Rotten Wood, David Wood, yes, you. Tommy Robinson, I know you've been watching this as well. And this other guy called Danny Roscoe, whatever the hell his bloody name is, who I challenged for a debate, and all these Islamophobes. How stupid would you, or are you going to be looking? Because the person that you fought was a Muslim, right?
Sorry, I don't feel very well.
You jumped to speculations and assumptions, and you made a whole campaign. You decided to come to the park to do a march. Apos wanted to invite her to him.
Sorry, I don't feel very well.
David Wood making videos, everyone jumping on the bandwagon. How embarrassing, isn't it? Just think about it for a second, brothers and sisters. Just think about it for a second. As Muslims, do we want the perpetrator to be Muslim? Of course not, because it's not what Islam teaches. And not only that, we know that backlash, our sisters are going to get on the road because these cowards usually attack men, you know. We don't want them to be a Muslim. The funny thing is, the ones that are watching this video, like Tommy Robinson, Rotten Wood, A Puss, Pusillanimous Weasel.
Sorry, I don't feel very well.
And the rest, and all the Islamophobes are gutted watching this video like, jaw drop, like, nah. Now, brothers and sisters, this video has a little bit of a twist. Now, what's this twist? I don't know if the person is a Muslim or not. We don't know. Between that, we don't know. Yes, I know the video said it is. But the reason I did this video is, and now they can have a bit of fresh air. They're going to be like, whew, that fear is enough for them. The fact that you're watching this, and all of you Islamophobes, you cowards, the fact that you watched this and clicked it and like, oh my gosh, that fear is enough for you. In Turkish, and I think only Ridvan will understand this. Yeah, you understand. Yeah, that fear is enough for you. Now, we don't know if it's a Muslim or not. I only did this just to make a very important point. Because If it's found out, because we know before Hartoon got attacked by another stupid idiot who was actually a Christian, who smacked her, yeah? And people jumped on the bandwagon. Did anybody invite Hartoon for an interview? Did anybody invite her? No. Did Hartoon press charges? No. Because it was a Christian. Shh. Let it go. Let it slide. Let's move on. No interviews need to be done. No religion of peace attacks again. No Islam is this or that, or the Prophet taught this or this. Even with this now, there's a bit of a suspense. It's like an England match, isn't it? It's like, oh, is there a Muslim? What if it's not? Ooh, that's going to look bad. Tommy Robinson, are you going to cancel the March speakers? What if it's not a Muslim? What's going to happen? Are you still not going to come to the park? If this was a Hindu, or let's suppose another Christian, or for other personal reasons, this person attacked Hartoon, for whatever argument's sake, is everyone going to cancel everything? Is the party going to be over? Yes, it is. The tickets are not going to be sold. Everyone's going to be like, oh, that was embarrassing. Let's move on. That is the point of this video. Because everyone is jumping on the speculation, right? And I know all of these cowards are having they're just like, oh, my heart just dropped. All of them. Why? Because.
So listen, this is a very important part because he tells you right here what the point of the video is. So listen again.
They said this. Even with this now, there's a bit of a suspense. It's like an England match, isn't it? It's like, oh, is there a Muslim? What if it's not? Ooh, that's going to look bad. Tommy Robinson, are you going to cancel the March speakers? What if it's not a Muslim? What's going to happen? Are you still not going to come to the park? If this was a Hindu, or let's suppose another Christian, or for other personal reasons, this person attacked Hartoon, for whatever argument's sake, is everyone going to cancel everything? Is the party going to be over? Yes, it is. The tickets are not going to be sold. Everyone's going to be like, oh, that was embarrassing. Let's move on. That is the point of this video. Because.
So notice he said that is the point of this video. The point of the video is to demonstrate the abject hypocrisy amongst those people there. I don't really know them that well, but I agree that if they found out that this person wasn't a Muslim, the whole thing would change. They wouldn't be all posting these things if it was a Christian or it was an atheist or Hindu or whoever it was. They wouldn't be trying to capitalize in the same way. That's what the point of his video is. And for Mr. Apostate to say, well, it was all just a prank, and his statement there is ambiguous. It could be read two ways. Either that he's claiming that Ali Dawah said the whole stabbing thing was staged and a prank and just set up, or he could be saying that he's saying that Ali Dawah said that his video is meant as a prank. No, the video is not meant as a prank. It's meant for a specific purpose, which is to demonstrate the hypocrisy within this, whether it be Apostate Prophet or some of these Christian people, or anybody who's involved in the situation, who's been posting all this stuff and trying to say, oh, look at Muslims, look how they do this or that and all this kind of crap. If they found out that it wasn't a Muslim, all that stuff would go away, or at the very least, it would end. They wouldn't be talking about it anymore. That's his whole point. So you're misrepresenting him again. Now, this one, I don't know. Is he that slow that he didn't get it? Or maybe is it just the fact that he's dishonest? I'll let you guys be the judge.
Right? And I know all of these cowards are having they're just like, oh, my heart just dropped. All of them. Why? Because they want it so badly. They want it so badly for it to be a Muslim. And that is the point of this video. And everyone that's watching this, the Islamophobes and the Muslims don't want it to be a Muslim. Why? Because it does nothing but bring harm. You know? So this coward who did this attack on a defenseless woman, she's defenseless, no matter how wretched she is, she's a defenseless woman, never hit a woman. Yeah? He's a coward. And I hope he gets caught. And when he gets caught, and if he's not a Muslim, I would love and pay any price to see the face of these idiots. Because you know, guys, the issue is not about freedom of speech. The issue is about freedom to attack Islam only. And my gosh, isn't it rich coming from Tommy Robinson? Isn't it rich coming from him to come and defend freedom of speech? My gosh. Me and Mohammed Hijab, the same people who came to your rally, freedom of speech, and you stopped me from coming in and I was nearly getting killed. Yeah? I was nearly getting killed, murdered, literally, on the ground. Yeah? You coward. You're talking about freedom of speech. My gosh, it's rich coming from you. You know, pusillanimous weasel. You as well, you coward. Got exposed. The point is this, guys, that these things bring nothing but joy and happiness to the Islamophobes. The fact that I did this video, they were bugging. I bet they were panicking. When they saw that, they were like, no. This is the point. They are happy like Steve was. Muslims that day were not happy, except a few silly individuals. Why? Because they know that this is not from our religion, and what is done is wrong, no matter how wretched she is. Yeah? That is our point. But the Islamophobes are happy. Let that sink in. When Islamophobes are happy and the Muslims are not, that shows you what the agenda as a whole is. And let me tell you something. And I'll end on this note. Yeah? I genuinely hope that this coward attacking the senseless woman, this woman senseless as well himself, I hope he gets caught. Yeah? Muslim or not, you are not going to stop our dawah. You're not going to stop the shahadas coming in. You're not going to stop the spread of Islam and the people hearing the truth. That's not going to stop. All that's happened here is this defensive woman got attacked, which is wrong. Yeah? And this coward, hopefully he gets done. Yeah? So, in a nutshell, I believe Hartoon, wallahi, I believe from the bottom of my heart, Hartoon and her likes aid Islam. Her coming in insulting the Prophet and doing all this kind of stuff, she aids Islam. Those who attack her, they are the ones who are making Islam look bad. Can you imagine that? Hartoon is aiding Islam, but those who are attacking are making Islam look bad. The point here is this, brothers and sisters. Let Hartoon carry on. Because by her doing that, people that are neutral see that and say, wow, this is Christ-like. This is the Jesus you're talking about? I mean, can you imagine? Jesus is love and mercy. He loves his enemies. And all she does is hate. To me, that does nothing but aid Islam. And I want Harton to carry on. Not that I like her hearing insulting the Prophet, no. But I want it to carry on so people can see the true face of such militant Christians. Brothers and sisters, hope this video has made a few pennies drop, because I'm sure it did. And as you can see, the double standards and hypocrisy, our da'wah will continue till the day we die. We do not want hate or anyone to be hurt. That's why I've been against ISIS very clearly. So even if this person is a Muslim or not Muslim, we still don't know now. Everyone jumping on the bandwagon, yeah? But even if he's a Muslim, it doesn't affect us because we know it's free from our deen, and that person is free from Islam, yes? And even if it's not, my gosh, I would love to see your guys' faces. Brothers and sisters, till next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Share this far and wide. I think the point has been made. And I think that little fear that I put in this Islamophobe's heart was damn worth it. Till next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How embarrassing.
So that was the point. Now let's reevaluate this and remind the audience what we were watching the video for. We were watching the video to see whether or not Apostate's Prophet's representation of the actual conversation was accurate. So let's take a look here. Again, to look at the post, he claims that in the video, he says that this is just a prank. No, he never claimed that it was just a prank. Okay. He didn't claim that, and it's ambiguous. But what you mean by it, but he didn't claim that the stabbing was a prank. He didn't claim that the video was just a prank. The point of the video was very clear, to point out the hypocrisy, that if you guys found out that this was not a Muslim, you would drop it like a sack of potatoes and crawl back into your little caves that you're living in. Okay. That's what you guys would do, because you're hypocrites. You're anti-Islam. That's what you're here, is to promote any narrative that is against Islam. That's the whole point. That's what his whole channel is dedicated to. And most of these Christians as well that are associated with it. And I'm not talking about all Christians. The people know who I'm talking about. I don't need to name their names. Okay. Everybody knows. Now, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to show a point here. Okay. Very clear point. And yeah, people are mentioning, and that's true, that somebody else attacked her. I think somebody punched her or slapped her another time. And supposedly the person was a Christian. He claimed to be a Christian in the video that I saw. Allahu Alam, I don't know. But Ali Dawa is claiming that they dropped it. They didn't press charges. They didn't go into a big thing. And if it was a Muslim, they probably would have done so. So I don't know. Seems reasonable, but I'm not going to conclude it with any degree of certainty on that type of level. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show a video from Mr. Apostate Prophet. Well, because actually, let me just remind you guys what I shared in the beginning, which was also from his page. Okay, let me share the screen here. And okay, so this one, where he said, I have easily won every discussion I have had with Muslims so far. No idea why they're still trying. He mentions 3 Muslims couldn't debate Islam, couldn't see the clear contradiction in Allah deciding who believes and disbelieves, but also punishing the disbelievers, even though he actually went to YouTube and claimed that he made an argument that he never actually made in the video. And when we tried to do the live stream, which was on, what was that, a couple days ago, on tap, and he was in the live chat, and we said, give us the timestamp where you said this. We went there and played it, and it didn't say what he actually said in his video afterwards. You know why? Because he went to get help from his little buddy Pine Creek to find out, oh, how can I actually try to rectify it and make a couple changes to make it seem like it's actually a contradiction, because he was so inept that he couldn't actually do that live in the video. And he admitted that in his earlier video, where he said, oh, I could have done it better. I should have been more prepared, but I thought I could go in there and the conversation would go like this, but it didn't go how you wanted. And you admitted that, and yet you think you still won? No, my friend. You're not even ready. Like I told you, I'm not even recommending you to go and read philosophy books, because you're not ready for that. You need to go back to grade school and read some Dr. Seuss before we upgrade you to philosophical texts, okay? Because you're not ready for that yet, all right? But I'll let you know. I'll send you some Dr. Seuss books, and then I'll let you know when you're going to be actually ready to upgrade after that. Just take it easy, and I'll let you know. Don't worry about it. So the point is, I'm showing this where he says he's basically saying he owned us. He won the debate, right? let's take a look at the message he sent me. Okay. A short time after the debate, a couple days after the debate, whatever it was. 1 second here, and let me share my other tab here. Okay, so here we go. Now, this is the part of the message, one of the messages that he sent. So it says, anyway, I admit my faults. Listen to this. I think I am an amateur debater and beginner to philosophical discussions, while you, speaking to Jake, the Muslim Metaphysician, while you are an experienced debater and proud philosopher. And I am open to talk about something that you claim to preach and that I am deeply knowledgeable in, which he thinks he's knowledgeable in Islam, which he's not. He doesn't even know the basics. If you change your mind at any time, you know how to reach me. I didn't even respond to it because I told him I'm not interested in talking to you because you're a joke, you're dishonest, and you're inept. You're not ready for the conversation. Those two things combined, I don't have time for you, buddy. Sorry to tell you. Now, let's see. Now, if we read this, right, he's claiming that he won and he owned us. Yet he's admitting that he's an amateur debater, a beginner to philosophical discussions, but that Jake, the Muslim Metaphysician, is an experienced debater and proud philosopher. You just upgraded me above you, dude. And then now I'm going to play. See, I want to play my part of the discussion, which I think clearly exposes him, because I know you guys have probably seen it. But we're going to show that his message is properly accurate. This message is accurate, not the one that we saw on his YouTube channel where he said that he won every discussion. You won every discussion, dude? Are you out of your mind? You're seriously out of your mind. You're so contradictory you don't even know it. When you're clearly telling me here you're a beginner and an amateur. And me, I'm experienced and a philosopher. Yeah, that's right. I have a philosophy degree. And you don't. You don't even know the basics. Okay? You didn't even know the terms necessary, contingent. You couldn't even tell me if anything in the world was contingent. I had to break it down Barney style for you, and you still didn't grasp it. So, just completely ridiculous. But everybody can see clearly on the screen. So, you folks, you can screenshot this. In any time AP thinks that he won and that he's proud and making these bold claims, you can remind him that he himself has admitted that he's an amateur and a beginner to these discussions. He's not ready. Not ready at all. So let me stop sharing my screen here for a second. I mean, how much more evidence do we have to give to show that he's dishonest? Because he tells me this in a PM after the debate. So it's not like it was before the debate to where he said, well, oh, I said that before the debate, then afterwards I felt different. No, this was after the discussion on tap. He said that. And then when he realized, oh, I'm not coming onto his channel, he made this post to say that he owned and won the discussion. Come on, dude. You're not genuine. You're not genuine at all. So you're not going to fool me. You're not going to fool my audience because I'm letting my audience know what the deal is. And nobody should take this guy seriously whatsoever. What else do we have here to really break down for this cat? So two things I want to do now. I want to further that point to show that he didn't win, that he himself didn't think he won after the discussion. And I'm going to demonstrate that with the video clip from TAP. So give me a second here. I'm going to share my screen and continue to play the video. Remind you guys, my first question to him, which I'm going to restart it, but my first question to him was whether or not he thinks a necessary being is possible, right? So let's take a look at that discussion on TAP. Let me just start around here, and I will play it here.
I'm sick of the hate. I've come today here to really have a reasonable exchange, to listen to you guys. I would like you to listen to me. Honestly, I've mentioned it before we went live. I've actually went through I've gone through 2 streams on this channel. I've watched them through just to get an idea of who you guys are, what you're doing, and all that. So I am here for a good purpose. So I would also invite everyone to just be completely open-minded and calm and respectful. I definitely will do that from my side. If I come to your question, Jake, thank you. Do I believe that a necessary being is possible? I believe that when you mean necessary being, you're kind of appealing to what is known in the ontological argument as the necessary greatest being, or in the Kalam cosmological argument, is that a combination of those, that there must be a being at the very beginning, or that there must be a being that is greater than everything else. If you mean that, I would say it is a question that I cannot really directly answer, because we don't really exactly have a definition of what we mean by a necessary being. We don't know.
So first things first, the way he answers the question about a necessary being, he says, oh, I think it's a combination of the ontological argument and the Kalam cosmological argument. No, it's not. Not at all, my friend. Has nothing to do with the combination of those arguments that you get to a necessary being. That's ridiculous. Has nothing to do with the combination of it. So straight off the bat, you don't even know what necessary being means. It's only made up of 2 simple words, my friend. Necessary and being. A being, philosophically, is just anything that exists. It's a thing. So a microphone is a being. I'm a being. My phone is a being. Philosophically, a being is just a thing. It's just anything that exists, an existent thing. That's all it is. Necessary simply means that it couldn't fail to exist. So in another way that philosophers talk about it, it's a thing that exists in all possible worlds. So examples of this typically would be like God, for example. Atheists posit maybe, for example, the initial state of the universe, maybe the initial state of matter and energy, or some type of configuration of it. That would be an example from an atheist side. Other things like the law of non-contradiction, certain mathematical facts like 1 + 1 = 2. These basic concepts that couldn't be otherwise, right? So as opposed to contingent, a contingent thing is something that could fail to exist. It didn't exist before. It could be different afterwards. It could fail to exist. It doesn't exist in all possible worlds. This is the expression. So in the beginning, he shows that he doesn't even know the basics of the conversation. The first question you're asked is a necessary being possible? And you say, oh, if I understand you correctly, you're talking about something to do with ontological and Kalam cosmological arguments combined. No. I mean, honestly, it's a joke. How could we take this seriously, dude? How could we take you seriously? Let's continue.
Know what to expect from this necessary being. We can't really specify and define this necessary being. Depending on what definition do we seek this necessary being? Is it greater? What does greater mean? And all that. So I would like you to explain it a little bit more.
Yeah. So he's confusing the ontological argument, which says basically there's a perfect being that exists. There's a being by which there's no being that's greater than this one being, right? Which is the greatest possible being, or the greatest being that could possibly be conceived, depending on how you word it. But it's the most perfect being. The idea of a necessary being doesn't necessarily have to do with the most perfect being, because you could have something that's necessary that's not the most perfect. It does not necessarily have to do with greatness itself. So again, he's just totally confused. He doesn't really even understand it. Let's continue, though.
So I'm not talking about in terms of greatness. So obviously, when I say being, a being is just.
So notice, I caught it right off the bat. I'm not talking about in terms of greatness, dude. Now I have to explain to him what necessary being means, because he doesn't even understand it. So you're getting into a conversation about God, and you don't even understand what necessary being means. And you think that you won the conversation? You're a joke.
Something that exists. So it could be anything. It could be a rock. It could be a person. It could be anything. A being is literally anything that exists. But on the necessary part, you mentioned that I guess either you don't have a good handle on that, or you don't think anybody does. I don't know. how do you understand the term necessary in that context when we say a necessary being? How do you understand it?
Well, as I understand it, what you are asking is that something must exist, or something must pre-exist in order for other things to exist. Do you want to clarify that or correct me on that?
Yeah, so I mean, something that's necessary just means that it couldn't fail to exist. So the negation of it is impossible. So that's what it means for it to be necessary.
Okay.
So,
yeah, it's a very vague question and a very vague definition to me. I mean, we for a fact know that we exist. I know that I exist. So we know that the world around us exists. We have speculations about what makes us beyond that. I simply do not understand where we would exactly get with that question. I don't know.
Yeah, it's really important because obviously we view God as a necessary being, but you could have other things that are necessary that are not God. That's also a possibility. And so if we can't even agree on whether or not a necessary being exists or is even possible, then I don't think we can, honestly, I don't think we can really get anywhere. So that's why I think we need to define what we're actually talking about. And I mean, obviously we think a necessary being exists, right? So that's obvious, but I want to understand your perspective as far as whether you think, well, it's possible, meaning that, you know, it could exist, or you think it's impossible, that it couldn't possibly exist, or maybe that you just don't know one way or another. I mean, those are really the only three options that I see.
To be very honest, I think it is rather irrelevant to me. I think it is irrelevant to the question of God at hand. And it really, again, depends on what exactly you would aim for by specifying and clarifying this necessary being, by making it.
You know what he just said? The idea of whether or not a necessary being is completely irrelevant to the question of whether or not God exists. It's irrelevant. When God, by definition, is a necessary being, if a necessary being either doesn't exist or couldn't possibly exist, then that entails that God doesn't exist. How do you not see that? The fact that you claimed, so here's your two options here, AP. Now, I thought you were smarter than this. So maybe I'm wrong. And my audience, they're kind of siding that I'm wrong. They think you are really that dumb. I think you're more dishonest than anything. I think you did see where the conversation was leading, and you didn't want to go there. You were like, no. You didn't really want to go there. That's what I see. But I could be wrong. Maybe you're just dumber than I thought. I don't know. It's very possible. But when you make this statement, honestly, we got to play this again. Because this is the crux of the issue here. We have to play this again. Let's listen to AP's beautiful statement. I don't think we can really get anywhere. So that's why I think we need to define what we're actually talking about. And I mean, obviously, we think a necessary being exists, right? So that's obvious. But I want to understand your perspective as far as whether you think, well, it's possible, meaning that, you know, it could exist, or you think it's impossible, that it couldn't possibly exist, or maybe that you just don't know one way or another. I mean, those are really the only three options that I see.
To be very honest, I think it is rather irrelevant to me. I think it is irrelevant to the question of God at hand.
It's rather irrelevant, to be honest, it's rather irrelevant to me, and it's rather irrelevant to the question of God at hand. So whether or not a necessary being exists, which God by definition is necessary, he's not contingent, is irrelevant to the question of God? Are you kidding me? And you think you won this discussion, son? You're a joke. You're a fraud. You're a phony.
And it really, again, depends on what exactly you would aim for by specifying and clarifying this necessary being, by making it necessary. What exactly would you aim for? And what is your exact what is the purpose of you defining a necessary being in terms of the existence of one God?
Because we believe that God is necessary. So
Why?
obviously, what's that?
Why?
Because what's the point of talking about a necessary being in the context of a discussion about being justified in the belief in God? Oh my God. It's irrelevant, he says. Oh boy, let's keep listening. Guys, this is funny.
Yeah, but the point why I'm asking you the question is because if we have the position that God is necessary, and you don't think that anything that exists could be necessary, then obviously we can't get anywhere. We have to start out at that point. So that's how I see it.
If you mean, I don't think I don't know. It's a question that I largely consider irrelevant, to be very honest.
Okay, so let me ask you this: before you came on the stream, had you ever even thought about this question? Had you?
I have.
Okay,
I have.
and so
I think it's not largely irrelevant.
He said it's irrelevant to him. It's largely irrelevant. It's irrelevant to the discussion, the debate. You know what I should have done, guys? You know me. I'm not that tech savvy. I'm lucky that I can put all this stuff together of what we got going on here, but I really need some help with that. So if anybody is interested in helping me out with some of the tech stuff and maybe behind the scenes stuff, let me know, because I could use help with that. I got to admit, see, I'll be honest with you. When it comes to the tech stuff, I am inept. I'm inept in the same way that probably Apostate Prophet is with philosophy, although I might be a little bit better with him at that than he is with philosophy. But what I would, if I was really clever, what I would like to have is I'd like to set up on the screen, and that is irrelevant counter. And every time he says that's irrelevant, I would ding, 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 and help it out. So, yeah, but anybody, if you guys are interested in helping me out, do send me a DM. Anybody that wants to help out this poor guy, Jake, with this stuff. But anyway, let's keep listening to it. Unfortunately, I do not have the irrelevant counter, but he said it like 5 times already within a couple of minutes.
Gotcha.
Okay, so then you need to explain why you don't think it's relevant, because I'm explaining to you why it is, but why don't you think it's relevant?
Well, you haven't really explained to me why it is relevant.
I did. I said that we believe in God. The discussion is about whether or not God exists. God is a necessary being, so he's in the category of necessary. And if you don't think necessary being is even possible, well, then obviously you don't think God is possible.
Okay, but why exactly is God necessary? Why specifically is God necessary?
God is necessary because he couldn't fail to exist.
According to who? According to what? That is your definition of God and your specific expectation of God.
Yeah, but that's the point. We haven't gone into the argument as to why we think that God is the necessary being. Before we even get there, I have to have your understanding of whether or not you think such a thing is even possible.
Well, maybe we should first define that in order to then understand whether such a thing is possible.
Yeah,
I mean, at this point, I just do not think that is a proper place to start at. I simply do not. And what we have is we have a space that we see existing before us, and all the things that we see exist in this within this space. It is largely irrelevant to me to speculate endlessly on whether all of these things must or must not exist, or whether without all of this there must be something fundamental that must necessarily exist. It is simply not really relevant to me as I see it now. If you can change my mind on this, I'm happy to discuss that.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Well, you asked me to define it. Well, first I asked you what your understanding was, then I gave my definition of a necessary being. A necessary being is just something that exists, that couldn't fail to exist. It couldn't be another way. It exists in all possible worlds. This is what a necessary being is in philosophical terms. So, I mean, I don't know how to get any clearer on the definition.
I would very honestly argue that I think that the question is quite irrelevant. I think it relies very much on sophistry, on assumptions, and it doesn't, in my opinion, add anything to the question of whether God exists or not.
So you think?
So I wish I had my irrelevant counter. He said the question of whether or not a necessary being is possible is irrelevant. It's sophistry, and it's assuming and begging the question. Let's listen to that again one more time. Seriously, we'll listen to that one more time. That was important.
I would very honestly argue that I think that the question is quite irrelevant. I think it relies very much on sophistry, on assumptions, and it doesn't, in my opinion, add anything to the question of whether God exists or not.
How could a question that I'm asking of whether or not a necessary being exists or is possible, how could that be relying on assumptions? A question is relying on assumptions? Are you kidding me? And you won this discussion? No. You're going to be embarrassed now, AP. You're going to be embarrassed. You should be embarrassed.
So you think to ask you whether or not you think a necessary being is possible is totally irrelevant and sophistry? I don't understand how you come to that conclusion.
I think it is quite irrelevant, to be very honest.
It's fundamental to.
Guys, how many times has he said it's irrelevant? Oh my God. And notice, don't worry, AP. I'm going to show you more of your dishonesty, my friend, and how inept you are as well. Keep track of how many times he's irrelevant, because I'm going to show you a PM where he sent me and he said it's not irrelevant, and he feels bad for actually saying that it was irrelevant. He wishes that he would have actually engaged more in the conversation. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that, because I'm going to show that message on the screen, inshallah. So let's go. Bismillah. To the entire discussion, I mean, it's not only that theists have these discussions, atheist philosophers have these discussions about whether or not a necessary being is possible. If it is, what the nature of the necessary being would be. These are it's not like I'm just pulling this out of my hat. I mean,
I understand, but the thing is, it is a question that doesn't lead us anywhere at all. It completely relies on.
I think it will lead us somewhere. I do. I think it will lead us somewhere.
Let's skip it and see it. I do not think that it leads us anywhere. I think that I think we can speculate endlessly about whether it must or must not exist, what it is and what it is not, and all that. But it doesn't lead us anywhere in terms of the belief in. When we look at the title of this stream, for example, the belief in one God, I don't think it leads us anywhere close to that, not even remotely.
Yeah, and I think it does, but maybe because you don't see what's going to maybe come down the pipeline, you don't understand it. But you still could answer the question, because you understand what the question is. Is a necessary being possible? You understand what the term necessary being is. You understand what the term possible is. You understand that there's three answers. It's yes, no, or I don't know. And I just don't see. You could simply say I don't know, and that would be fine.
I don't know. Let's skip it with that. I don't know.
So that's fine. That you don't know. And now I'll explain to you my position of why. Now he's saying he doesn't know. Now he's just going to admit, well, he doesn't know. Okay, let's keep listening a bit further.
Maybe in some more detail as to why I think it is relevant, and whether or not you think it's possible or not. So when we talk about when I'm asking the question whether or not it's possible, something that is impossible is just logically contradictory. So if I say, well, I've got a square circle in my pocket, you're not even going to be waiting to look to see what it is, because that's just ridiculous. Or if I say, oh, look, hey, there's a married bachelor over there. You see that guy? People are going to look at me crazy. So these things are contradiction in terms. Now, is a necessary being in that same light that it's literally contradictory, or is it possible, meaning that it is logically possible? There's nothing utterly contradictory about it. That's what the whole question is. Now, if you're saying that you don't know, I find that a little bit interesting, because I think you should be able to tell whether or not it's actually a contradiction in terms.
I think it very much depends on how you actually define that necessary being. When we talk about God specifically, we are talking about something. Yeah, okay, yes, maybe it is possible. Maybe it is possible for that being to.
Maybe it is possible. Now he's saying maybe it is possible. Went from it's irrelevant to I don't know to maybe yes, maybe it is possible. 3 different answers within the first 10 minutes of me talking to him, and he won this discussion. Are you kidding me, AP? You are unbelievable, dude.
To exist, a necessary being to exist. You define that necessary based on certain assumptions, based on certain thoughts and supposed evidences that you make along the way, and then decide that this being is necessary and that it is therefore that it must therefore or can therefore exist. But we are making a lot of assumptions until we get to the conclusion that God is a necessary being.
I'm not even talking about that.
I mean, I know the thing is in the back of my head. I know that we're talking about God when we talk about a necessary being.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about God.
Look what he said. He said, see, the thing is, I know that in the back of my head, when we're talking about a necessary being, we're talking about God. No, we're not. I already told you what a necessary being was. And the fact that you still made that claim afterward shows that you are so inept. I told you a necessary being could be anything. It could be something natural that just couldn't fail to exist. It doesn't have to be God. Man. Unbelievable, this guy. And he thinks he won.
A necessary being could be anything. It must be defined first before we can say whether it does or does not exist, or whether we can or cannot know that.
Yeah, but Ridvan, I'm not excluding this to God alone. I'm saying I can give you examples of other things that maybe even an atheist would consider necessary. Something like matter and energy, or maybe the initial state of the universe. You could say that that's necessary. I'm perfectly fine with that. So I'm not restricting it to whether or not God exists. Like, okay, there's this category that's necessary being that God could be a part of, but there could be other things that it's not God, and that these other things are the actual necessary beings, something like matter and energy, or the initial state of the universe. And so from your paradigm, I'm wondering if something like that is possibly necessary.
Well, as said, I would stick with it may or may not exist, because especially if we look beyond what we understand from our universe right now, and where our universe
back to it was irrelevant, then it was I don't know, then yes, maybe it is possible, then back to well, it could be, maybe not. I mean, just all over the place, dude. all over the place. Like your answer to a singular question, you've given like 4 different answers. And that's only the first question that I asked him. One question lasted about 30, 40 minutes or whatever it was.
Originates, how it is formed and all that. There is a lot of stuff that we do not understand at all. There are a lot of assumptions that we will make along the way. There are a lot of contradictory things that are at the end or at the beginning, as depending on how you see it, that may be considered necessary, but we have to define them in order to understand whether they can or cannot exist. Therefore, I cannot make any proper assumptions of that. Others, more knowledgeable experts, may do that. Good for them. I do not think that I'm in any position to make any speculations about that.
Okay, so I mean, the opposite of something that's...
Now he just admitted that he's not in any position to make a speculation about whether or not a necessary being exists. Listen to that again. He is not an expert, so he is not in any position to judge whether or not a necessary being could possibly exist. So how could you possibly win in a discussion when you yourself said that you're not equipped to tell us whether or not such a thing is possible? It just keeps getting worse and worse for you by the minute, dude. Worse and worse.
It's necessary is something that's contingent, which means it could be another way. It could fail to exist. I mean, a common example would be something like this microphone. Do you accept that there are contingent things, or you wouldn't even?
So now I'm at what point in the video? I'm at about the 18-minute mark. And I'm like, you know what, dude? This guy isn't getting it. I tried to start out with necessary being because I thought he was swift enough to get that concept and honest enough to just give a straightforward answer of say, yes, it's possible, or no, it's not possible, or I'm not equipped and I don't know how to answer. Like, he gave 4 or 5 different contradictory answers because he is inept and he was just grasping at straws on the spot. He didn't know what to say. Now I said to myself, you know what, Jay? It's not working with this cat with the necessary thing. Let's try to dumb it down. Let's take him down Dr. Seuss level. Let's go to contingent things. Let's see if he can even tell me if something contingent exists. Now let's see what he says to that. Now, a contingent thing is just anything that could possibly not exist. It doesn't have to exist. Let's see if he could answer that question. And notice that if there's 3 categories of necessary, contingent, and impossible, if we have things that exist, then we eliminate the impossible because that's just ridiculous. That's contradictory. So if we have something that exists, then it's either necessary or contingent. Now, he couldn't tell me whether or not anything is necessary. And now let's see if he's going to be able to tell me whether or not anything is contingent. Let's see what he says.
Do not think that I'm in any position to make any speculations about that.
Okay, so I mean, the opposite of something that's necessary is something that's contingent, which means it could be another way. It could fail to exist. I mean, a common example would be something like this microphone. Do you accept that there are contingent things? Or you wouldn't even make a claim about whether or not anything is contingent or necessary?
I simply do not think that it is irrelevant to the point at hand. I mean, we are talking about
now whether or not something is contingent or whether or not anything is contingent is not relevant. It's irrelevant. Whether or not contingent things even exist is irrelevant to a conversation about God. Now look at Brother Sharif here. He couldn't help it. He's smiling. He's laughing. I caught you, dude. I caught you, bro. Abdu's like, what's going on here, man? This is getting weird. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm looking around. I'm like, Sharif, he couldn't hold it in. He's laughing. He's like, dude, this is ridiculous. He can't even tell me whether or not anything is contingent. It's a joke.
The belief in one God and whether it is justified. I feel like when we talk about these questions, we are spending a lot of time on something that will not lead us anywhere within these 2 hours that we have ahead of us, because they do not add to or take anything away from the discussion that we are supposed to have today.
Yeah, I think they do, though. But I mean, are you telling me that you cannot tell me whether or not this pen is necessary or contingent?
It is completely irrelevant to me.
It is completely irrelevant as to whether or not my pen is necessary or contingent. He couldn't even tell me whether or not my pen was necessary or contingent. And a guy who can't tell me about the modality of a pen, of whether or not it's necessary or contingent, he won the discussion with us? Are you serious? Even look at his face. Even he doesn't believe it. Look at him. Even he doesn't believe it. He's like, how could I get out of this with convincing the audience that I'm actually making sense in this discussion?
Yeah, but
it's irrelevant to the discussion. I mean, I may ask you questions that you will.
It's irrelevant to the discussion. He said it at least 20 times. Guys, honestly, I feel bad for my audience for having to put you through this. But this guy needed to be embarrassed because he's talking so much crap on the internet, and it's just ridiculous.
Simply dismiss. For example, I can ask you questions about further in the discussion on what God or Allah did in the time before He created us. And I saw on one of the streams, for example, that the conclusion was that there are certain things that we can simply not understand, which is why we should not speculate on them, or why we should not make certain clear conclusions and assumptions about them, but simply move on from them. Similarly, this, from my point of view, from my perspective, is not something that is necessary or relevant to the discussion. It's simply a waste of time, to be very honest with you.
Well, I mean, I can easily answer that question, and maybe when you have your time to answer questions, you can ask me that or one of the other guys. But I think it is relevant because there's a common argument that theists use, which is called the contingency argument, which is part of what I'm actually talking about now. And we talk about modality. So there's things that are contingent, there's things that are necessary, and there's things that are impossible. These are three categories of thought. And if forget about necessary being, I tried to move on to something more mundane like my pen. If you cannot even commit to a position about whether or not my pen is necessary or contingent, I don't think we're really going to get anywhere. So I do think it's foundational.
Well, I think we could get anywhere if we actually focus on things that matter. To be very honest, when I think about religion and I think about the one God, I think that common arguments on the nature of the universe, the nature of being, the origin of the universe, the ontological argument, the cosmological argument, the design argument are all a giant waste of time that have not really convinced anybody. Except for exceptions.
Can I just bring some direction to the discussion?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, I think it's going to continue because this is a good back and forth. But about you not thinking a certain question is relevant, right? Whether or not the question is relevant might be a subjective thing, or it might be something that maybe you need to take the time to reason with the person who's asking you the question, see their point of view, see where he's going. Maybe he's coming from somewhere where this particular question is relevant. I understand you might not see it as relevant, but you need to take the idea seriously. In the same way, like if I see something like the problem of evil as irrelevant, I'm still going to take your idea seriously. If you ask me questions, I'm going to answer them. I'm not going to just sweep them under the carpet and say, hey, this question seems irrelevant to me. Let's talk about the contingency argument, because these philosophical discussions about evil aren't going to take us anywhere. I might think that, but in order to be a serious interlocutor, I must take your idea seriously. So Jake is taking you down a train of thought here. I would just urge you to take his questions seriously, even if you don't see them as relevant. And he is trying to take you somewhere with these questions. It is a certain line of reasoning that will have a conclusion that we're going to talk about. So let's take each other's questions seriously is what I'm trying to say.
Can I say something about that? The reason that I do not think it is useful to indulge in these in these questions and in this line of argumentation is that, for example, before the stream when we arranged this, I also for myself specified that I do not really concern myself with whether God must or must not exist, and that I do not focus on this, that I do not argue about this, and that I do not think that it is relevant to the question. I do not think it is relevant to religion. I simply do not think that this plays any role in what we are doing here. I don't think that this is not the reason why I do or do not believe in God, for example. My reasons are entirely different, focus on completely different standards, which this is something that I simply I do not think that it is useful to be indulging in that. And
I understand that that's your perspective, and I respect it. That's okay. But then I'm just telling you to think from someone else's perspective, who you would be coming forward with a particular argument. You
notice that he said he is taking it seriously, but he's not taking me seriously because he can't even answer the question about. And look, I still got my pen, buddy. It's still here. I wonder if he has nightmares about my pen. He's probably still thinking about it, or maybe he's not. I don't know, but. The point is, dude, you couldn't even answer whether or not my pen is necessary or contingent, and you think that I can think that you're taking me seriously? Oh boy, I apologize, guys. I'm trying to control myself here.
Use against the existence of God or against theism or Islam, and they just sweep it under the carpet and be like, that's not important. Let me talk about this other important thing that is relevant. Well, that other thing is going to be relevant to him because it's the reason he believes. And for you, this thing is not relevant because it's not the reason you disbelieve. But then in order for the conversation to be fruitful, you need to take your interlocutor's reasons seriously, even if you initially find them irrelevant. That's what I'm saying. So if you come to me with something that I feel is irrelevant with regard to the existence of God or truth of Islam, I will take it seriously. I will engage with it. So I'm just saying, yes, you're right. We have 2 hours ahead of us. So let's take each other's questions seriously and answer them honestly. mean, you could just say you don't know, and Jake can move on, or you can ask him to give his view.
Well, here's the thing: if you come to me and argue with me about veganism and why I do not think that veganism is reasonable, and start asking me questions about it, I will feel like why exactly are we talking about this? That's not
true. Yeah, but then come on. I mean, you got to see there's a difference between the difference when we're talking about. Sorry,
but if I say to you, hey, I think veganism is clearly wrong, let us discuss this, then we may be open to going through the different argumentation and different perspectives of that. But that is not what we're doing. That is not what I'm doing, to be very honest.
Yeah, but Ridvan,
yeah, but hold on a second. Let me just try to come back to this.
Okay.
Yeah, I understand you don't see it as relevant. It's not relevant to you, but what Abdul was trying to explain is that it is relevant to me. So if it is, even if you think it's the dumbest thing in the world, if part of the reason that I actually believe that God exists is because of this pen, and then I can try to explain it to you, that I think you should try to engage with the conversation. Now, I'm going to try this one more time, and if it doesn't work, I'm happy to let the other people come in and we can continue on another line of thought. But are you trying to tell me right now that you, based on what I said, and let me explain it one more time. So something that's necessary means that it has to exist. It couldn't be otherwise. It couldn't fail to exist. Something that's contingent is the opposite of it, that it could be another way. It doesn't have to exist. Now, if you have those two categories, there's a third, which is impossible, but I don't think you're going to tell me that the pen doesn't actually exist. So let's just get rid of that. If we're dealing with necessary and possible, or I'm sorry, necessary and contingent, which is possible, are you trying to tell me that you cannot tell me whether or not this pen right here is necessary or contingent?
It is something that does not that I do not think about, that I do not concern myself. That's what I'm trying to tell you. When we talk about necessary being, when we talk about contingency and all that, it is something that I do not concern myself with at all, and that I do not have an opinion on, that I do not think about. I can go ahead and answer your question. Necessary being, yeah, may or may not exist. Yeah, then contingent, may be, yeah, but.
He said, I can answer your question. Necessary being, it may or may not exist. A contingent being, it may or may not exist. Unbelievable, man.
I simply don't understand where we go with you. I mean, we can move on from this if you want to. I can simply give you vague answers to this. Yes, maybe, and yes, maybe.
Yes, you're just going to say you don't know. Well,
yes, maybe, and no, maybe. Yes, maybe, yes, maybe, yes. I mean, come on, dude. You've given like 6 different answers to the same damn question.
I tried to do is I started off with a necessary being. Obviously, that didn't work. I tried to and I don't mean this in a bad way, but dumb it down to a pen to try to get a handle. Well, whether or not you can give me an answer about the pen, whether or not it's necessary or contingent. But if you honestly, if you can't do it, even that, then yeah, I can't proceed. And Sharif, if you want to continue with another,
are you saying that the existence of God and whether we believe in God or not depends on whether we can or cannot answer these specific questions?
Yes. It's fundamental to the entire thing. Now, so I can actually explain if you want me to give 5 minutes to explain what my actual argument is. I can, but honestly, I don't even think it's worth it, because if I do, I mean, you still can't tell me about the pen. So I mean,
go ahead, please.
So the point is this. It's simple as this. Okay, I asked you if a necessary being is possible. Okay, if you commit to the idea that a necessary being is possible, well, what a necessary being means is that it exists in all possible worlds. Okay, so if a necessary being is possible, meaning that it exists in some possible world, then by definition, it also exists in all possible worlds, which means that a necessary being exists. This does not mean that the necessary being is God. It could be this pen, which is absurd. I don't think the necessary being is the pen, but it could be, and it could be matter, energy, or some configuration of it, or maybe the first state of the universe, if you think there's one, any of those things. The point is that based on modal logic, S5 logic, and I don't need to go into much detail about this, philosophers pretty much agree on this, is that once you say that a necessary being is possible, that it then entails that the necessary being actually exists. Now, whether or not that's God or something else, that's the further question down the line. But if we can't even get clear on whether or not it's possible, then we can't get to the conclusion that a necessary being exists. And there's many atheists, and see, atheists maybe have a misunderstanding, think, oh, well, he's trying to trap them into understanding or committing to the idea that God exists. No, it's not like that. For example, Graham Oppy, who's a very famous English-speaking philosopher, who's, in my opinion, one of the best atheist philosophers today, he believes that there's a necessary being, but he doesn't believe that that necessary being is God, and that's perfectly fine. And he gets to that same conclusion based on similar rationale that I have just explained. And so I don't think it's irrelevant, because we need to get to what's called stage 1 of cosmological arguments, which is whether or not a necessary being exists, which Graham Oppy and I, even though he's an atheist, can agree on, and then we can discuss the nature of that necessary being. Okay, so that's how I'm getting to that point and why it's relevant.
Okay, maybe I was a little bit, I wasn't really open to the discussion because I generally consider it nonsensical. Maybe I was a little bit condescending. Maybe, I don't know, maybe that is a fault on my side. It might be true. I'm sorry about that.
So there, he apologizes. After a half hour, he apologizes. Well, maybe I should have just answered your question honestly. Maybe I should have,
my point is, as I said from the very beginning, we can agree that a necessary being exists, that it may or may not exist. We can agree that the pen is not that necessary being.
It may or may not exist. He's still not giving clear answers.
maybe that is contingent. The issue is where we get from this, the end result of this will be that there must be a being, or that there probably is a being. And from then on, we will discuss about the specifications and the definitions, the conditions of that being, which completely render this discussion irrelevant. I do not...
See, look at that. He knows where it's going. He knows that once he says it's possible, then it makes it necessary. And then we get into the specifications of it, as he says, and he doesn't want to go that route. He sees it and he's like, oh, no, I don't want to go there.
Really make a...
So that is dishonest. You're not genuine, dude. See, this is the thing. I'm not going to lie. The guy isn't that bright, but he's not that dumb. He does understand, I think, somewhat where it was going, and he didn't want to go there.
Statements or express a view. You have not heard my view on what I think is out there, on where I think the universe originates, on what I think caused the universe to exist, what is outside of this universe. I did not make any statements on that. I leave that up to speculation and do not make any assertions about that at all. I do not say that there is...
I would actually agree with this statement. Even Aaron Ra did better than AP. I would actually agree with that statement. Aaron Ra, and I thought it... Listen, Aaron Ra, you could say whatever you want about him. Yes, he was embarrassed. He came in making, very bold claims that God doesn't exist, no necessary beings exist, all these kind of things. And at the end, we all know, you guys all saw it, he admitted that a necessary being existed. But why Aaron Ra did better is because I have to say he was a more honest interlocutor. Even though he did certain tactics here and there throughout the discussion, he was more honest and more willing to at least engage in the discussion, where AP wasn't. Just totally dishonest in that respect. So I do, first of all, appreciate the super chat, and I would have to agree with that statement.
No necessary being, that there is no creator, there is no origin, there is no originator. I don't make any of these statements because, to me, they are largely irrelevant to the question of whether one God exists or not. But yes, if you want to go ahead with this, a necessary being may exist, and no, I don't think it's the pen. So where do we go with that?
Okay, yeah. So where we go with it is that if
So after 32 minutes, he admits that a necessary being is possible. Unbelievable. So it's just unreal how this guy, after 32 minutes, and I was muted briefly there for a second. After 32 minutes, the guy finally admits that a necessary being is possible, where he says, well, yes, a necessary being may exist, which means if it may exist, then it's possible. It took him 32 minutes to come and answer one single question, that it may exist. Unbelievable. That's all you needed to do. But the point is, if a necessary being is possible, meaning that it may exist, well, a necessary being by definition exists in all possible worlds, such that if it exists in one possible world, meaning that it's possible, then it exists in all possible worlds. Therefore, a necessary being exists, which I'm going to break that down now when he said it. Why couldn't he honestly answer the question straight from the get-go? Is a necessary being possible? He couldn't answer it until 32 minutes later. Unbelievable. And yet he won this discussion? Are you kidding me?
the necessary being exists, meaning that it's possible that a necessary being exists, then it necessarily follows that a necessary being does exist, because the definition of a necessary being is that it exists in all possible worlds and couldn't fail to exist. It just follows by necessity. And then we can discuss what the nature of this necessary being is. Is it something natural like matter and energy, or is it maybe something more like God? We can have that discussion. And I don't see how that's irrelevant. It's relevant.
Well, yeah, to me, as said, may or may not exist. I appreciate that you tell me that it can and therefore must exist. Thanks for the information. I think we should move on to the
yeah. But do you understand? Do you understand that if a necessary being is possible, that it follows by modal logic that the necessary being necessarily exists?
Well,
do you understand that?
It is in the question itself. Yes, of course. The question itself assumes that a necessary being, if it can exist, then it must exist because it is necessary. I mean, just the words simply.
Right. So that's why it's relevant. And
yeah, but
the only two options is if a necessary being is possible, then a necessary being.
So I said that's why it's relevant, and he said, yeah. Now he's admitting that it's relevant. Unbelievable.
Necessarily exists. Your only other option is to say no, that it's impossible, in which case you'd have to show through logic that it's actually the concept itself is a logical contradiction or something of the sort. And then the burden of proof would be on you to demonstrate that. And I don't think you or pretty much any other atheist is able to do that. So that's why it's relevant. Now, when you, even if you just admit that a necessary being exists, it doesn't matter, because it doesn't mean that you've apostatized from atheism. You can still be an atheist and believe that something necessary exists, just as Graham Hoppe does.
I simply think that the question itself is simply a setup. I mean, as far back as this whole argument goes, from the simplest forms, from answer.
So look at that. Who's the one that's dishonest? He thinks that the whole question is a setup. That's why he didn't want to answer it, because he thought that the whole question was a setup. So you weren't here for a genuine question, my friend. You said that the question was a setup. Are you kidding me? Asking somebody whether or not something could possibly exist, meaning a necessary being is possible, is a setup? How is that a setup? That's a philosophical question. And whether or not my pen is necessary or contingent is a setup, and we are the ones that are imputing motive. You are, my friend. Unbelievable. Now that it went from irrelevant to it may exist, which means it's possible. Then I point out the implications of it. And then he goes back even further and says, oh, now I see where it's going. Yeah. No. So it went from irrelevant to possible eventually after 32 minutes. And now it went to it's a setup. Unbelievable. It's just ridiculous. It's getting better by the moments, folks. I'm going to do about maybe 10 more minutes of this part of the stream, and then I'm going to end it with a little bit of interaction with my conversion video that he deconstructed.
Ontological argument, which from today's eyes could look pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, but his argument is about God. Mine is a modification of that, which is just merely about a necessary being, which most, as far as I understand it, even most atheist philosophers in the field generally accept that.
Okay, but I simply think that the question itself is fallacious. It assumes, it begs the question, it wants us to lead to a specific thing. I simply think, hey, I do not have an opinion on this. I think it is irrelevant. So I think we should move on from that.
Yeah, okay, so I'm going to say one last thing, and then you guys...
Listen to what he just said. He went from irrelevant to it may exist to a setup, and now listen to what he says here. We got to listen to that again, folks. That was a big one.
Argument is about God. Mine is a modification of that, which is just merely about a necessary being, which most, as far as I understand it, even most atheist philosophers in the field generally accept that.
Okay, but I simply think that the question itself is fallacious.
He thinks that the question itself is fallacious. It went from irrelevant to a setup, and now the question is fallacious. The question how could you think you won this debate, this discussion, where you thought that it was first irrelevant, then you said it was possible, then you said it was a setup, and now you're saying that the question itself as to whether or not a necessary being is possible is fallacious? What does that even mean, that the question is fallacious? Are you kidding me?
It assumes, it begs the question, it wants us to lead to a specific thing. I simply think, hey, I do not have an opinion on this. I think it is irrelevant. Okay. So that is my perspective on this.
Most atheist philosophers, personal opinion, the fact of you argument is about God. Mine is a modification of that, which is just merely about a necessary being, which most, as far as I understand it, even most atheist philosophers in the field generally accept that.
Okay, but I simply think that the question itself is fallacious. It assumes, it begs the question, it wants us to...
It's fallacious. It begs the question. So it begs the question, but he didn't give any philosophical argumentation to show that the question was fallacious, irrelevant, begged the question, a setup. I mean, come on, we just start piling these things on more and more and more, and it just gets more and more ridiculous from you, Mr. Ridvan.
Lead to a specific thing. I simply...
Trying to lead to a specific thing. Well, that's the whole point of an argument, is to try to get from premises to a conclusion. But maybe you didn't even know that. I don't know.
Think, hey, I do not have an opinion on this.
Now you don't have an opinion on it. If you don't have an opinion on it, then why'd you come to the stream? Why did you come to the stream to discuss and debate whether or not one God exists when you do not have a position on the possibility of that? It's ridiculous.
I think it is irrelevant. So
Right,
that is
so now it's back to he thinks it's irrelevant. Ding, hit the irrelevant counter again.
I think we should move on from that.
Yeah, okay. So now he wants to just move on. He's desperate. He's like, oh, get this guy Jake the Muslim Metaphysician off of me. Get him off of me.
Say one last thing, and then you guys can move on to maybe a different train of thought. But my whole thing is the fact of you, this is my personal opinion, the fact of you saying that it is irrelevant, you think it's begging the question, all this different terminology that you're using, I'm sorry to say, but I think it shows that you don't really understand the topic that well for you to make that claim, that it's totally irrelevant to the discourse.
I do not make a claim here, but if you want to stick with that, I would like to also dig your opinion on the problem of hell, for example.
So listen what I did there. I had to be honest. I said, the fact that you think it's irrelevant, begging the question, the fact that you think it's fallacious, a setup, the fact that you think that this question about a necessary being is all of these things, I'm sorry to say, shows that you're not ready for this discussion. And he's like, yeah, you're probably right. So, I mean, come on, dude. You won this discussion. Be honest with yourself. You probably had an anxiety attack after it, just like what happened with Daniel. Honestly, did you have an anxiety attack? I'm guessing that you did. I'm not making fun of people with anxiety, but if I had to guess, I would think that knowing you probably had an anxiety attack.
Afterwards, and then I would like to see
what
that's
fine.
To that movie.
Yeah, yeah, sure, we can get to that. But on that note, there, Ridvan, the thing is, so again, I'm just going to reiterate a bit of what I said because maybe we can bring Sharif into the discussion. He can have a back and forth with you. The thing about this. People are normally anxious to get to the conclusion. Give me the meat is what Aaron said when he was on our stream, right? So he wants to get to talk to me about God and good and evil and judgment and stuff like that. But I respectfully think that's just not taking your interlocutor's idea seriously. What Jake was trying to do, and I think what we should try to do on the stream, is walk you through a line of reasoning that shows you why we believe, because it's a question of justification, and justification is simply a matter of providing reasons for why you believe. That's what justification is. That's what, generally speaking, philosophers understand justification to be. So if I'm going to start at the top, I mean, that's what might be begging the question. And I'm going to start with the conclusion that God exists, and therefore you should follow everything in the Quran because Islam is true. That begs the question. What Jake is doing is the opposite. He's trying to build a case from the ground up. He's not starting with the conclusion. He's starting with premises that you do not find in the conclusion. If he's begging the question, you would find his premises in the conclusion. Now, the way necessity is defined here doesn't beg the question. Modal logic has developed a lot since Anselm. I mean, we've moved way beyond Anselm, and even Plantinga's modal, ontological argument isn't the last thing that we've progressed on. There's been work beyond that. So the way necessity and contingency is defined here isn't something that's exclusive to atheists that they use to try to define God into existence. It's something that philosophers in general, theists and atheists alike, utilize in many different areas. So what Jake is asking you here is well known in philosophy, and it's not exclusive to religion. Right? So I just want us to start off by taking these ideas seriously. So again, just like I told you, if you bring up hell, I'm going to take that seriously, and I want you to do the same.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Go ahead. I would like to explain where I even stand on the whole question of God, because I think we're going into we're misunderstanding why we should or should not start here. I think, to be very honest, I always say that I certainly reject the one God. I reject the one God based on how we define the one God, based on the idea of the one God and how he is described and preached within these specific religions that preach the one God. To answer the question of the stream itself, I find it entirely justifiable to believe that there is a God, that there is one God, or that there are more gods, or that there is a creator, or that there is a non-conscious.
Listen to what he's saying now. Listen to what he's saying, folks. Do you guys hear what he's saying? Notice that the stream is called "Is Belief in One God Justified?" Listen to what he just said. We need to run that back because he just conceded the entire debate.
So why we should or should not start here. I think, to be very honest, I always say that I certainly reject the one God. I reject the one God based on how we define the one God, based on the idea of the one God and how he is described and preached within these specific religions that preach the one God. To answer the question of the stream itself, I find it entirely justifiable.
So listen, to answer, he points to the stream and says to answer the question of the stream itself, and then concedes it. Listen to what he says.
That preach the one God. To answer the question of the stream itself, I find it entirely justifiable to believe that there is a God.
To answer the title of the stream itself, I do find that it's entirely justified to believe in one God. Khalas, how could you win? You just conceded the debate. You just conceded the discussion. And you think you won? Are you that delusional or that dishonest? I don't know. You guys can debate that out. I can't adjudicate that one.
That there is one God, or that there are more gods, or that there is a creator, or that there is a non-conscious creator, a non-conscious origin. I completely agree that that is justifiable. I myself, for different reasons, reject that idea as, I think, absurd and unnecessary. There is no reason for me to believe in that. But apart from that, how I see it is not that we have found the origin of everything and we have found that there is no originator and no causer. What I see is that we know very limited things.
Listen, I'm done with this stream. This one's out. I'm done. So he just conceded the stream. He went to the stream. He said, the title of the stream is Belief in One God Justified? Yes, I think that the belief in one God is entirely justified. You've conceded it. And then he went on further to say that it's rational. It's also rationally justified. It's justified. It's rational. It's rationally justified. Unbelievable, man. Now, what I'm going to do is, you guys saw that whole 20, 30, 35 minutes, or whatever it was, of going back and forth about necessary and contingent. Let's see, to add it, to make it even worse, to show how dishonest this guy is of claiming that he thinks he actually won. Let's see a private message that he sent me after the stream was over. So I'm going to go to my tab here, and this is right here. Share the screen. Okay, so this is it. So this is a message from Mr. Apostate. I'm sorry about that. He was referencing the question I asked him about him telling me constantly that it's irrelevant. I was totally wrong to simply dismiss your entire argument as irrelevant. Notice that. Notice what he just said. I was totally wrong to simply dismiss your entire argument as irrelevant. If that's the case, guess what, my friend? You have just been tapped out. You just been tapped out on tap. You're tapped out, dude. You lost. You didn't win. You got tapped out. You admitted that the belief in God, in one God, was justified, which was the debate of the stream. You admitted that. You admitted that a necessary being was possible after saying that it was irrelevant for so long. Flip-flop 6 different answers. And then post-stream, you admitted that that whole debacle in the beginning, you were wrong for doing that. You said, I was totally wrong to simply dismiss your entire argument as irrelevant. So that whole 35 minutes where you said it was irrelevant, you said that you were wrong to do that. Then you went on to say, I have also stated that publicly. I'd be happy to explain. And then notice the contradiction here. Notice the contradiction here, guys. Then he says that he was totally wrong about dismissing my entire argument as irrelevant. And then he says here, listen, I'd be happy to explain and discuss why I think it is irrelevant and then discuss your belief. So you were wrong to say that it was irrelevant, but you want to bring me on your show for you to explain to me why you still think it is irrelevant. And you won the discussion? You're delusional, dude. You're out of your mind. You're a joke. You're a joker. Completely ridiculous. Honestly, how can anybody continue to take this seriously? Oh, boy. The guy told me that he was wrong for saying it was irrelevant and then wanted to invite me on his stream after the debate, after he just told me that he was wrong for saying it was irrelevant, to tell me that it's still irrelevant. And you think that I'm going to come onto your stream? You're a joke. Unbelievable. So let's go back to this point, which was the main point that we were evaluating, which was this little comment that he had on his thing here, where he says, I have easily won every discussion that I ever had with Muslims so far. No idea why they're still trying. Lists all these things. and the Muslims, he said we couldn't debate Islam, and we couldn't show how it wasn't a contradiction. No, we could debate Islam, but you can't even tell me if my pen is necessary or contingent. So I don't know how you're going to fare well with Islam. And the second thing is, we gave you 50 minutes to try to prove a contradiction in Islam, and you couldn't do it. You failed to be able to do it. You couldn't even prove a contradiction within our beliefs, and you had to run to your channel afterwards to try to cobble some things together to slightly change your argument to try to present something that at least is apparently contradictory, and then claim that you did that the entire time when you never actually brought up predestination into the mix, which was another example that I could show to be dishonest. But I'm so tired of this guy. It's like, how many more examples do I need to pile up to show that the guy is a complete joke? Nothing. He's done. Khalas. It's finished for you, man. You're completely a joke. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a little bit because it's almost going on for 2 hours. Maybe I'll do about 20 minutes. But I want to just briefly review his supposed deconstruction of my conversion video. So let's take a look at that, inshallah. So here we go. Okay, Bismillah.
Is there supposed to be sound here?
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome back. I'm the Muslim Metaphysician, and today I'm here with a special episode to talk to you guys about why I became a Muslim.
Can everybody hear that? Is the sound good? Does it sound okay? Everybody? Anybody? Everybody? Apostate Prophet, there is sound. Okay. Yes, sound is good. Okay, fantastic. If the sound makes any problems, just let me know and I will fix it. Okay.
Okay, fantastic. So just before I get started, I just want to reiterate, guys, if you like the content that I have on my channel, consider hitting the like, subscribe, and share buttons below and get it out there with your friends, inshallah. All right, so.
Okay, I like it. Here, I left a like. I hope that helps.
I originally was raised in a Catholic family. I went to Catholic school for a few years.
Again? What is it with Catholics? I don't understand. How many of those? I reviewed 3 so far, and no, I reviewed 3 before, and 2 of them were Catholics. Again, anyway.
Years when I was very young, in kindergarten and first grade. Eventually, we transitioned to a public school. But I was raised in a Catholic home. Like pretty much my entire family is Roman Catholic, although they aren't very, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, they're not very serious practicing Catholics, but they do generally believe in the Catholic faith. I went to, in my early years, I went to what's called Sunday school, where I participated in religious classes from very early on up until about 8th grade. Now, the Catholic Church has a system of sacraments and things that you do. You have things like baptism, communion, and then later on they have something that's called confirmation, which basically happens when you're a young man or young woman. It's usually in 8th grade or going into freshman year of high school. So around 13 years old. At this stage, you get what's basically called confirmed into the Catholic Church. My story is quite interesting looking back on it now because I was a little bit of a rebellious child. And it's interesting that the Catholic Church was willing to take my parents' money all the way up until
out with different people and this and that. But alhamdulillah, years later when I thought back about interprets not being
after 13, I went into high school. I still kind of believed in God, but I never had faith in the Catholic tradition or Catholic faith as a whole. And a lot of it was due to that. But also many things didn't make sense to me. And I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about what some of those things are. So for much of high school, I just generally believed in God, but I didn't have a religion that I practiced or anything that I aligned myself with in particular. In high school, though, I did meet a friend named Alex or Alejandro, who is a Muslim. He was a Muslim and he became one of my best friends in high school. Originally, we didn't talk too much about religion, but eventually he got around to speaking to me about Islam and the Quran and things like that. So,
dude, when did this guy convert to Islam? Why is he doing the Arabic thing? I mean, I never did that. I was a Muslim, and I never did that. But why is what is the background of this guy? Is he? I think he has some. I don't know, Jake something Ellie. I don't know, some Latin culture background. Why is he speaking? Why is he saying the Quran and Alhamdulillah? And it's kind of whatever. I don't want to comment on that. Let's go.
What? So he's commenting on the fact that I'm saying Quran, Alhamdulillah, the fact that I'm speaking Arabic, using Arabic terminology in the video, and I'm a Muslim, and there's something wrong with that. What's the problem with that? The fact that I am pronouncing Arabic and using Arabic in my videos. What's the problem with that? If I'm a Muslim and I want to say Alhamdulillah, what's the problem? I mean, it's ridiculous. Like, that's your critique? You're critiquing my video of me saying Alhamdulillah or Inshallah? I mean, it's just ridiculous, dude. But it's par for the course because this is AP, right? I mean,
he prompted me basically to start reading the Quran. So I started reading it in my mind that I was going to read this book and somehow refute it to my friend. I was going to refute my friend and his religion. But while we didn't talk too much about religion, but eventually he got around to speaking to me about Islam and the Quran and things like that. So reading the Quran, a lot of doubts that I had about the Catholic and Christian religion as a whole became cleared up. And the Quran somehow avoided much of the problems that I had with the Bible and the Christian faith, and just completely avoided those things and supplemented them with much better ideas and understandings.
Okay, so sometimes when people tell their past, especially when it comes to what they used to believe in, things might get a little bit incoherent. He was kind of a Catholic. He was raised as one. He was rebellious. He didn't really care. At a later point, he still believed, but he didn't really have much belief. But when his friend, who was a Muslim, introduced Islam to him, he wanted to refute that religion. And then when he started reading the Quran, he much of the doubts that he had in his mind became to be cleared up.
And some of those things that I'm referring to are, first of all, the way I see it is that the Christian faith is built on three fundamental doctrines. The first is the Trinity. So it's the idea that God is three in one, three persons and one being. And I've gone over the Trinity before in much of my videos and explained why I think it's illogical. So if you guys want, you can go back to my previous videos, and I have a series ongoing right now about the illogical nature of the Trinity. But just in the sake of time, I'd say that I think that the Trinity is a fundamental doctrine in Christianity, and most Christians would agree with this. There are some Unitarian Christians, but generally speaking, it's a Trinitarian faith. So for me, the Trinity was always a problem because it didn't make sense. And like I said, if you want to go into more detail about that, I have many videos on my channel explaining why it doesn't make sense. The second thing is what's known as the incarnation.
I don't know if he's using the term Trinity in a very generalizing way, but the Trinity, we just had this with Sajid Libim, who was making very strange assertions about how Jesus is actually a Muslim in the Gospels. But there are non-Trinitarian groups around and interpretations around as well, not just the Unitarians. Every Christian school, every Christian movement that recognizes a Godhead or that recognizes Jesus as the Son of God or the divinity of Jesus is not necessarily Trinitarian. But yeah, I hope this does not turn into some Christianity didn't make sense, therefore Islam story. But let's see.
Of Jesus Christ. So it's the idea that the second person of the Trinity became man for a brief period, although right now he still does have his human body. So that also didn't make sense, how a being could both be fully God and fully man, truly God and truly man, and possess contradictory attributes. Now, I've also gone into a couple videos in my series on the...
I have to be very honest. When it comes to the Trinity and the resurrection and the sacrifice, I feel like I understand where people are coming from. It's confusing. It may sound contradictory, but when it comes to the nature of Jesus, the dual nature or the united dual nature and things like that, I don't see why that should be such a no-go in theology. But that's just me.
Yeah, so he doesn't understand why the incarnation is problematic. Well, AP, if you want to actually learn something, watch some of the videos in my video, or maybe I can teach you. Contact me. Maybe I'll give you some classes on the incarnation. Of why it is problematic. Maybe watch some of my debates and some of my videos on it. But the fact of the matter is he thinks that, the Trinity and the crucifixion, he could see, well, yeah, that doesn't really make sense, but the incarnation doesn't. Well, how about the fact that you have one single person who has two sets of contradictory attributes? A single person is simultaneously omniscient and ignorant, omnipotent and weak. I mean, how many different examples should I give of these two sets of contradictory attributes? And also the fact that he supposedly is one person, even though prior to the incarnation, he was a person, because the Son, the second person of the Trinity, became flesh. He was a person prior to the incarnation. He took on, according to orthodoxy, a human body, a human soul, and a human spirit. Or if you think the spirit and the soul are the same, fine. Either two elements or three elements. Those, do we ask, are they sufficient for human personhood? Well, yes, because what's a human person? He's those two or three elements. Well, if those two or three elements, a soul, a spirit, and a body, are sufficient for human personhood, and Christ or the Son took that on, well, then that would be a person, in which case there would be two persons. The Son, who was a person prior to the incarnation, takes on what is sufficient for human personhood. So then you have a divine person plus a human person, which equals two persons. But guess what? Orthodoxy says there was only one person with two natures in version of the incarnation. So that's called the two sons worry, or the Nestorianism problem, which Nestorianism was a heresy that said Christ was two persons. So there's so many problems with it, but you don't know, AP, because you don't know Christian theology. You don't even know your own belief system and why you believe what you believe, because you couldn't even tell me whether or not my pen was necessary or contingent. And yet you're going to deconstruct me and my conversion? Get out of here, dude.
I don't know.
Incarnation, explain in more detail why I think it's problematic. And
On that Chronic Son said, "Oh, this is not a live stream." Okay, still love you. It is a live stream. Hey.
contradictory. So if you're interested, you can go check out those videos. But just again, for the sake of time, I would say that the incarnation for me doesn't make much sense. And the third thing is the atonement. This is another fundamental pillar. It's the idea that an innocent man, Jesus, the second person of the Trinity, became a man and died on the cross for the sins of mankind. And so for me, it didn't make sense. And I think even with the biblical portrayal, especially in the Old Testament, when you look at passages in Deuteronomy like that express the idea that the son shall not be put to death for his father, but each man will be put to death for his own sin, not for the sins of the other. And so for me, it didn't make much sense how an innocent man would be put to death for the sins of all of the guilty, and somehow that is the pinnacle of justice. For me, that seems to be the opposite of justice, that an innocent man should not be put to death for all of the sins of the guilty, and that somehow would appease God's wrath, and then he would have mercy on us. For me, that didn't make sense, and it still doesn't make sense. Now, what's the Quran?
I agree with that mostly. I think one of the
So he agrees with me on that.
things that don't make sense to me about Christianity and Christian belief and Christian core doctrines is the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Of course, this was very oversimplified how he told it, but I don't think that it was his intention to clarify and to tell to explain the doctrine extensively. But yeah, I would agree that that is a very complicated and to me a part that doesn't really make sense. But again, I hope this is not Christianity is bad, therefore Islam.
Portrayal of these three things. First of all, the Quran explicitly rejects the idea of a Trinity. We believe in Tawheed, which is basically the uniqueness and the ultimate oneness of God. We worship and serve God alone, and we believe that God is not three persons in any way. He's just completely one. Now, this is expressed in the Quran in chapter 112, Surah Al-Ikhlas, verses 1 to 4, which says, "Qul huwa Allahu ahad, Allahu samad, lam yalid wa lam yulad, wa lam yakun lahu kufuwan ahad." And so in this surah, it says, say, He, Allah, is one. He is the eternal or the self-sufficient. In verse number 2. Verse number 3, he begets not, nor is he begotten. And this is explicit denial of the idea that the Son was eternally begotten of the Father, like you find in the Nicene Creed and the Creed of Constantinople. The Quran is explicitly rejecting this doctrine. And the fourth verse says, and there's none like unto him. So God is completely unique. Laysa kamithlihi shay. We do not compare anything with God. He is ultimately uncomparable in that sense. And so this is an explicit denial of what we would say the confusion with Christianity is. Okay, so that's the first thing, that it rejects the Trinity and it sets up a unique and undeniable oneness of God in the Quran, which makes much more sense and is in line with arguments that we give from natural theology for a creator God.
Okay, so far it is just basically attempting to refute Christianity, or not even refuting Christianity, it's just arguing against Christianity from an Islamic point of view, and therefore arguing that Islam is rather true or more true than Christianity, as it seems. I hope that he will actually get into presenting arguments why Islam itself is true, not why Christianity is false and therefore Islam is true.
The second thing.
So much of that is more misrepresentation of it. What did I actually said? I didn't say that because Christianity is false, that therefore Islam is necessarily true. No, I'm bringing up 3 examples of my fundamental problem with the Christian faith, which is the Trinity, incarnation, and atonement. And guess what? Islam rejects all of those and replaces them with doctrines that for me make much more sense. First, God is not a Trinity. We believe in Tawheed, the absolute oneness of Allah, okay, which makes sense to me. Second, we reject the incarnation. Jesus, alayhi salam, was a true prophet of God. He was the Messiah, but he was not God in the flesh. So it gets out of that contradictory problem of both God and man simultaneously. Also, the idea of the crucifixion in Christ dying for our sins and the innocent man dying for the sins of all the guilty. That also doesn't make sense. The Quran rejects that over and over and over again when it says no man shall bear the burdens of another, no man shall bear the sins of another. So rejects all of these doctrines and replaces it with doctrines that make sense. Jesus was the Messiah, but he wasn't God on earth, rejects the Trinity and establishes Tawheed, and also says that people will be judged according to their deeds and the fact that they believe and worship the one God and do good deeds. To me, those make all more sense. It's not merely because Christianity is false. It's because the things that I think make Christianity fundamentally false, Islam rejects them and establishes things that are rational and seem to be obviously true to me. Also, that I said that Islam is more closely in line with natural theology. And this was a point that I was making in my discussion with James White. And what AP needs to understand why we argue for a necessary being typically. Okay? Because the gap between arguments from natural theology and the Quran or Islam are very small. But the arguments or the gap between natural theology and Christianity is vast, because you're not going to get from natural theology an argument for the Trinity, generally speaking. And James White admitted this, that it's due to special revelation, not general revelation. You're not going to get that for the incarnation. You're not going to get it for many of their fundamental doctrines. But the fundamental doctrines of Islam can be rationally comprehended from creation alone, apart from special revelation. Now, we do need special revelation for other things. Yes, that's definitely true. But the bare fundamentals of it can be rationally affirmed. Okay, so that's the point. So the whole rest of the video, and I'm going to cut it there. We don't need to go through it because he just pretty much straw mans me the rest of the time and says, oh, what Jake is saying is that because Christianity is false, Islam is true. No, I'm not arguing that. My primary point is the gap between general revelation and the special revelation of Islam is rather thin. So we can get there from a lot, and there's not much more that needs to be affirmed. That was the first point. The fundamentals can be known and don't contradict natural theology or general revelation, what we can know about God through reason and creation, apart from specific special revelation. And then what is found in the special revelation confirms that, makes sense, and it's not because it rejects what Christianity says, it's because it's true, because I actually believed it was true based on rational argumentation. So he totally misrepresents me. But again, it could be just because he's just dense. He just doesn't get these things. He just might misrepresent me because he truly is inept and he can't get it. But again, we just need to remember this pen, my friends, because AP does not know if my pen is necessary or contingent. Thank you very much. So that's it, guys. We're verging on 2 hours here. I think that's enough. I think everybody's had enough Apostate Prophet for today at least, and probably from the past few weeks, honestly. But I think I've established a few things. The guy isn't here for genuine conversation. He's not serious. He's a fraud. He's dishonest. And he's totally inept when it comes to these conversations. He should stay off YouTube because he's not ready for this stuff. And I mean, what else can you say? I put all the evidence out there for you guys. There's much more. I could have gone into much more detail. But like I said, I think enough is enough. I think that you guys got the picture. But so somebody asked, where was it? Thought I saw a good comment there, but I might have lost it. Anyway, guys, probably be doing a stream sometime later in the week. I'm actually, Asad Allah is in the chat, so I put a couple of comments on the stream, but I want to say salam to him. I believe, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, but in the chat this Friday, inshallah, I will be on the arena on Hamza's Den with Brother Hamza, and I think Asad Allah is going to be there as well. So I look forward to sharing the stream with him on Friday, inshallah. So that should be interesting. So make sure you guys check that out. I may do another stream at some point before that, but I'm not really sure yet. We'll see how it goes. So just be on the lookout for that. And what else? Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I think you guys can understand that AP, look, the guy's not serious. Don't take him serious. I wouldn't even watch his stuff. Don't even watch his videos because he's just a troll. He's just there to troll Muslims. He's not serious at all. You know, the other thing I want to say is I probably missed a lot of super chats because when I get in the zone on the roll here, it's hard to really address them. Many of the ones that you guys said were just kind of comments or just to support me and my channel, which I really do appreciate. And, you know, may Allah reward you guys for that. So, you know, those super chats do really help out a lot. Also, consider hitting the join button at the bottom of the screen, and you can join to become a member to support the channel, as well as also in the description of the video, and I put it in the chat as well, a link to the Patreon to where you can help support as well. But if you can't do that, that's fine. Just always remember to click that thumbs up button to like the videos. Really helps with the algorithms. Leave some comments. Share the video on your social media platforms, no matter how big or small. And, of course, subscribe. If you're not subscribed already, I mean, what are we doing? We're going to have beef, you know. Hit that subscribe button. So also check out TAP, Thought Adventure Podcast, which I'm a part of with brothers Sharif Abu Laith, Abdurrahman, who just had a son, mashallah, Dawood. He's a very cute baby, mashallah. So congratulations to him. And also, how can I forget? Brother Yusuf Ponders. So the four of us on tap. Definitely go check that out. Check the original stream that we had with Apostate Prophet there. We've had others with Aaron Ra. We've had Brother Hamza Sources on. All different kind of discussions. We'd like to keep it kind of academic there and go into mostly proofs for God and debunking atheism and a little bit of Christianity mixed in here and there, but mostly debunking atheism. That's what our show kind of specializes in, and also responding to atheist arguments. But the other thing is this coming Sunday, we're going to have on a Muslim scholar. He is formally trained in Islamic studies as well as in analytic philosophy. So he's got both going on. He's got secular studies as well as Islamic studies. Really sharp guy. And we're going to be talking about the problem of evil. He actually wrote a book on the problem of evil. So, and his name is Safar Chowdhury. So that should be interesting. Make sure you check out TAP this coming Sunday, inshallah. But until next time, guys, I appreciate you all once again for watching. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.